Requesting asylum in Latvia. To apply for asylum in Latvia, you must personally apply to the State Border Guard with an application at the respective border crossing point, the airport transit area, in the nearest structural unit of the State Border Guard if the person is already in Latvia. After asylum has been requested, the State Border Guard will take fingerprints, inspect documents to verify identity, discuss situation of the asylum seeker, issue identity document to asylum seeker entitling to stay only in Latvia. The Office for Citizenship and Migration Affairs will assess whether Latvia is responsible for reviewing the application, conduct a personal interview, will decide whether to grant or refuse status. If there are grounds to verify the identity of the person and the facts related to entry, the person may be detained and accommodated in the premises of the State Border Guard. Interview. The Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs will conduct an interview in which the person will have the opportunity to provide in-depth information and answer questions about the reasons for seeking asylum. An interpreter will be provided during the interview. A representative of the applicant may also take part in the interview. The application shall be reviewed and decision taken within 3 months from the date of the personal interview with the asylum seeker. A person has the right to request the termination of the review of the application at any time during the procedure. The rights of asylum seeker. Get acquainted with the information in the case. Appeal the decision. Receive information on the progress of the procedure, appeal procedures and free of charge access to legal assistance. To invite a person to provide legal assistance at his or her own expense. Contact relatives and/or organizations which counsel asylum seekers. If no decision on status has been received within 3 months after the submission of the application and an asylum seeker's identity document has been issued, the person will be permitted to work in Latvia until the final decision enters into force. Responsibilities of the asylum seeker. Cooperate with the authorities involved in the asylum procedure. Participate in discussions and interviews. Conduct medical examinations. Comply with the internal rules of the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers. Accommodation for the asylum seeker. If the person does not have sufficient funds to provide accommodation, the person will be accommodated in an accommodation center for asylum seekers. Each person accommodated in the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers is entitled to receive a daily allowance of €3. The person remains in the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers until a final decision is made. Living outside the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers. Asylum seekers have the right to live outside the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers in a place of their choice, paying for it at their own expense. The State Border Guard and the Office of Citizenship and Migration Affairs must be informed about the place of residence they have chosen. When living outside the accommodation center, the asylum seeker does not receive a daily allowance. Education. A minor asylum seeker has the right to receive primary and secondary education. Healthcare. An asylum seeker has the right to receive a certain amount of medical assistance at public expense. Emergency care, healthcare services provided by a family doctor, etc. The medical cabinet of the Accommodation Center for Asylum Seekers is open daily from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.